Thank you for that, and thank you for joining this session in which for the next 45 minutes, I guess, we're going to talk a bit about artificial intelligence in Azure. And yeah, we're going to see a bit how artificial intelligence can be applied, I guess, into retail and e-commerce. So I'm going to tell you from the start, this is going to be a live demo. What you're going to see in here is literally things that we are going to build together, right? Oh, well, I'm going to build it. You're going to watch it. Sorry for that, right? But it's going to be a live demo. We're going to try to build a simple solution that kind of demonstrates how easy it is to use Azure AI, right? The components from the Microsoft Cloud in terms of artificial intelligence and how those can be applied into your application. It's going to be a really simple application. I'm pretty sure that everybody who's watching here live or online are better developers than me. So if you see at some point things that don't make sense from a code perspective, keep in mind I'm a noob from a developer perspective. But enough about that. Let's go straight into it. Just a few things about me, because you're probably wondering why I'm here and why I'm talking to you guys. My name is Catalin Popa, and all of those badges and all of those titles that you see in there are basically in there because I've been working with Microsoft technologies for the past 12 years. That's my whole career, I'm going to be honest with you, right? Since from my very first job up until now, I've been working with Azure and I've been implementing Azure solutions. So I'm a consultant. At this point, I'm implementing solutions usually for major enterprises and for governments. And some of them in the past years, because you're probably wondering why I'm talking about artificial intelligence here, some of them include AI components as well. More and more companies and more governments as well try to implement these kind of solutions as things go along, right? Technology evolved, and with that evolution as well, that's how things are now, right? It involves artificial intelligence also. So just to show you a quick idea of what we're going to build and how it's going to look like, the simple solution that we're gonna present today, it basically looks like this. We're going to have a very simple application, which will be that product identifier application that you see in there. In there, some user is going to go, it's going to upload an application, and then once that application is being uploaded, then Azure does kind of its magic in which it will try to identify what product that is. And if that product is identified, then it will basically make a redirect towards an e-commerce website. I have a small e-commerce website. It's one of my customers actually, right? Locally in Romania, that's where I'm from. And yeah, it's just going to redirect to that product. What you're seeing in here, to be honest, is basically kind of a, let's say, enterprise version, so to speak, of this Google Lens capability that you have in google.com. Probably most of you already used it. But if you guys go to Google and if you upload a file in here, right, then basically Google is going to tell you, hey, I found this little toy that you just searched. I found it at Amazon, on Printmix, on Wolfuria.com and whatever, right? Now, imagine it's not as general as that, right? Imagine it's just for your business, it's just for your application. And the demo that we're going to build, I'm going to show you the end product so that you guys understand how we're going to get there, kind of looks like this. It's a demo app that I built. In here, if you want to search directly for your product, you can literally go, upload your file. You want to search for the product directly, you're going to get a message at some point. It found the Mutella toy, that's how it's called, right? And then afterwards, you will be redirected to the product page at some point. Here it is. It costs around 9 euros. That's kind of the conversion in here. And you can actually buy it from the customer website, right? So this is what I'm going to build. Very simple. I'm going to explain you why I want to show you you guys this example, because this is just a mere example of product recognition when it comes to visual product recognition and visual searching. But in terms of artificial intelligence, all of these components have certain use cases that can be applied in different scenarios. This is just one of them, probably the simplest one that I can show you, and it has a visual impact. But we're going to talk about other use cases as well for artificial intelligence, specifically in this industry, in e-commerce and retail in general. Now, enough with the PowerPoints and with the slides. As you can see, I'm not a PowerPoint fan, never was, sorry for that. So let's get straight into it, and I'm gonna open my Azure portal. Some of you might be familiar with Azure, some of you might not be, bear with me. I'm not going to explain all of the things. I'm going to just go really quickly through all of it, because it's not about Azure. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is literally how easy it is to use these technologies, regardless if you're an AI expert or an Azure expert. It's literally just kind of plug and play, so to speak, on certain features that you can actually use from here. So without further ado, let's actually go and create the only resource that I will need in this demo, and I'm going to use one of my subscriptions in here. I already have a resource group which I called Product Recognition Demo, and in here I am going to create an AI resource. Now I'm going to filter all of the Azure resources that you have from an AI perspective, and you can see here a bunch of them, to be honest, that are presented by Microsoft. The one that I'm going to use is the first one, this Azure AI Services, which is the general component when it comes to building AI components in Azure, in Microsoft Azure. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, but why that and not some other components that we have in there, right? The reason is because if you want to use AI as a general matter, then probably that's the thing that you want to use in your solutions. If you have something really specific that you want to do, for example, if you want at some point to, I don't know, do translations, then you probably will use a language service. If you want to do speech to text or text to speech, you're probably going to use speech, right? If you want to do cognitive vision, right, as we do computer vision, sorry, or custom vision as we do today, you're probably going to use those components, right? But this one, literally, it's incorporating all of them. So if you don't know what to use, or if you just want one resource to manage, just keep in mind this is the general one that you want to use. So let's build one of these. Shouldn't take too long. I'll select the closest region, I guess, or the most common one, I guess, for Europeans. Let's put West Europe, and let's call it, I don't know, pets demo, something like that, I guess. I'm going to use the pricing tier, the only one that I have available at the moment, which is standard. I will acknowledge that I read all of those terms that I haven't actually read, right? And let's go quickly through it. From a networking perspective, I'm just going to leave it open for the demo's sake. Identity as well, tags, these are minor details when it comes to building resources in Azure, so I wouldn't really focus on them for a moment. So let's create it, right? What I want to show you in here is that with just a few simple clicks or a few simple commands, or with infrastructure as code, if you're more well-versed in Azure, let's put it like that, you can easily create a such resource. And now when it comes to that resource, let me refresh it until, here it was, sorry for that. When it comes to that resource, now you're not going to see too much things in here that you can actually configure from an Azure perspective. You're just going to see this resource, some information about it, but the most important part, you're going to see some keys and some endpoints. And yeah, for you guys who are developers, you probably already guessed it. The reason why you see these keys and these endpoints in here is because you can do APIs towards this service to have some predefined models that you can already use, or some semi-predefined models that you can already use, so that you can literally embed them into your application, right, as a developer. So we're going to try to do just that, right? If you remember our diagram, which we showed earlier, it will literally be just like that. We're going to build our semi-model, if you want to call it like that, right? In which we will train some things to identify some products. Then based on that, we're then going to do an API request toward that model so that we can get results on new images that we're going to send to be recognized, to be identified. Now, the simplest way on how you can do that, to train your own model from that perspective, is by using one of the other portals that Microsoft has, which is customvision.ai. And in here, if you log in with the same account as mine, which is here, my live account, you can see in here I'm logged in the same manner, right? Here you can build different projects, right? Now, of course, it's gonna ask you for the project name, so let's call it Pets Demo as well. It's gonna ask you for a description. Let's put it object detection for certain products on a e-commerce website. Doesn't really matter, right? Now, it's going to identify already the resources that you have in Azure. So what you see at the moment, those are 2 resources that I already have built. The one that I just built with you guys a few minutes ago, and one which I had in here for a couple of days because, oh well, I have to test my demo until I present it to you. So that's the resource that I used a couple of days ago. But let's use this new one that I just created, right? Now, afterwards, you'll see that you can choose between 2 project types, classification and object detection. And while some of them do different things, at the end of the day, right, we will want to use object detection because object detection will basically let us find content or specify something inside an image. You can have multiple objects inside an image. For that, you'll use object detection. If you just want to tag an image in a certain way and put a label on that whole image, then probably what you want to do is classification. So for our sake, what we're going to do today is object detection, because maybe at some point in our pictures that we're going to send, we're going to have multiple products. That might be a case as well, right? So you would want to detect all of those products in that picture. Now, in terms of domains, when it comes to selecting one of these in here, these are kind of predefined models that you can use, which Microsoft puts at your disposal. It's kind of specific for what you're trying to do, and you can find documentation and information about how those are specific for your case in the official Microsoft pages, right? But you can see that if you don't really know what you want to detect, probably you're going to want to use a general domain. If you want to detect specific things like logos or products on shelves or so on, right? Probably you're going to want to use one of those domains as well. Now, I'm telling you all of these details because, as I mentioned earlier, right at the start of the session, it's important to understand the outcome that you're trying to do, right? Because in terms of AI, you've probably already seen it from some of the other sessions that were into this conference before and even today. These are building blocks. It's not literally something off the shelf that you will use and that's it. Well, usually these kind of hyperscalers, right, when it comes to Microsoft, Amazon, Google, you name it, doesn't really matter, right? They put at your disposal these kind of resources, AI resources, with some predefined models, but they're not going to give you a finite product. It might be in some other cases, but when it comes to building cloud solutions, these are building blocks, Legos if you want, in which you have to take that component, figure out in your architecture how it might help you, and then put that resource to use so that you can actually build or do whatever you're trying to do. Right. So let's do the same thing as well. Let's actually create a project. Takes a while. Here it is. And in here, it will be very intuitive, right? Now, as a disclaimer, everything that I'm doing here with clicks, you can also do it programmatically, right? So if at a certain point you want to script all of these things that you see in here, or if you want to, just have another application doing it, you can do that via PowerShell commands, you can do that via infrastructure as code, you can do that via API requests into your application. What I'm doing here is visual because, oh well, let's try to explain it as clear as possible if we're here to explain all of these things, right? Now, I'm going to add here a lot of images. So I'm going to show you, I have a specific folder in here in which I have a lot of pictures with a lot of things that usually an e-commerce website for pets would usually sell, right? They're mostly for products. It's this wonderful toy that you see in here, right? Some treats for dogs, I guess. Then you have other treats for, I guess it's cats or even dogs again. I honestly don't know, right? And some cream, some balm that you use for your pets as well, right? So for product, let's try to see if we can train our artificial intelligence to recognize these once we want to interrogate it. So we'll do just that, right? I have what's the number in here? 17 total without these folders. I have 68 pictures which I will use for my training. And I'm going to tell you in just a minute why we use so many pictures, but you probably guessed it. So let's open all of these. Let's see how fast the internet connection is in here for 68 file upload. pretty quick. Okay. And now, once they're uploaded, you actually have to do, let's say, the work, right? You have to go through all of these pictures, and at some point you have to select the area that represents a product or an object that you want to identify, right? I'm not going to do that for a moment, but you want to select that, and then you'll have to put a tag on it. Or by default, the technology actually kind of detects objects in there. So if you see, if I just hover with my mouse on the picture, it's already kind of predefining me an area in which it basically says, hey, I'm kind of identifying something in here. Do you want to select it and add a tag for it? And I'm going to do just that. Let's call it Smith and Burton Balm or whatever, right? Now, once I put a tag on each image, you're going to see that I'm going to find it in the tagged section, of course, right? And I only have one at the moment. So presumably, if I want to train my artificial intelligence, my model, to be as accurate as possible, I will have to do these kind of tags, these kind of labels for all of my pictures, or at least for most of them, let's call it like that, right? I'm not going to do that. It's probably going to take us 30 minutes to do it, but bear with me until I tag at least 2 of each. Let's see, right? I'm going to call this Nusper Snack. That's the name, I guess. And the last one, which was it? This one, this Wolfsblut treats, right? See, this one, it's kind of fishy. It doesn't show me the entire product, for example, so I'll have to do this manually myself. Sorry for that. I'm gonna do it like this. Here it is, right? So let's call it Wolfsblut. Right, so once I did that, I should presumably have 4 tags in here with 1 image in each tag. Let's do 1 more of each, right? Bear with me a second. You can see the pictures, right, from a, let's say, from a diversity perspective, are of all sorts. Some of the pictures are incomplete, some of the pictures might be fuzzy, some of the pictures might be in different angles. The more variation you have, the better it will be, because that will basically help your model to understand all different kinds of scenarios when a user is taking a picture. I know in a, let's say, utopic world, we would want users that will only give us exquisite pictures, but realistically, that will probably not be the case. So the more you attend for these kind of scenarios, the more probability it will be that you will also recognize odd pictures that the users might send at a certain point, right? So let's do 1 more. Bear with me a second. I know this is a bit boring from a demo perspective, but I'll promise you it has a reason. Smith and Burton. Oh, wait. Let's do a Wolfsblut also. Right, and then 1 more, which was the other one, the Nusper Snack, right? Sorry, not this. This one. Great, so now I have 2 of each. I still have a lot of them untagged. If I try to train my model right here, I usually have 2 options. It's not going to work. I'm going to tell you in just a jiff why it's not going to work for the moment, right? But you usually have quick training or advanced training. Now, quick training, it's basically a thing that Microsoft puts at your disposal, and it says, hey, I'm going to use the minimal resources that I need from a computing perspective and time perspective so that I can train a model that would be at least decent, right? If you want to do more advanced training, and if you really want to spend time and have a budget for training, you can actually specify in here as many hours as you want for that model to be trained, which basically means that more computational power would be put in place, would be put at the disposal of the model, of the service, to actually train this solution. I'm going to try quick training. It's going to fail, right? The reason it's going to fail is because even though this kind of training model, it's a click-to-click kind of situation in which it's really intuitive, you can't train on minimal data, right? As any artificial intelligence, right? At the end of the day, as any model, you have to have a minimal set of data to actually do that. So at this point, you've probably already seen it. if I want to train a project in terms of object detection, I will need to make sure that I have at least 15 images for every tag. So that's why I have 68 images in total. It's because I have to kind of respect this threshold of having 15 per product. Well, the good thing is that we don't have to do that manually ourselves today, right? I already have a project which has all of those tags. You can see here that I have 33 pictures of the Nutella toy, 23 of Smith & Burden, 24 of the Knusper snack thingy, right? The Volsplit as well, 23. The reason why I have so many is because in some pictures, it might be that I have a picture with both products, right? So some of them might coincide. You can put multiple labels, you can put multiple tags on a picture. It doesn't have to be a specific product. It can contain multiple products at once, right? Now, once you train the model, it probably is going to take about 5-10 minutes if you do the quick training. It also depends on your data, how many pictures do you have, and so on and so forth. But once you have that, you're going to receive some info about your training, right? The precision, recall, and MAP, right? Components that you usually have for a model. In which, as you can see for my model, if a tag will be predicted by my model, I am 91.7% likely that that prediction will be right. Then in terms of recall, right, if it recognizes a tag specifically, the percentage will be 100%, right? And in here, of course, the overall performance of object detection, if it happens, it will be 100%. Now, the reason why this happens and I'm having such good numbers is because, oh, well, my example is really simple, right? I only have 4 products, 4 tags. Most of the pictures are kind of close up and clear, as you probably saw. But keep in mind that once you train this, right, you probably want to have better and better results with each iteration. Now, you can improve these results either by literally feeding more data into the model, of course, or putting more compute time into your training. Or both, of course, at some point. Now, once you have these, right, because these look so nice and well, you're probably wondering, okay, I have a model, I trained my model, how do I use it? Now, you have this predictions section in here, in which you either can see your endpoints from an API perspective, right? And you have usually 2 options in which you can send an image towards this model. You either can send a URL if your image is somewhere on the internet or you're saving it somewhere into some storage account or whatever, or if you want to literally send the file directly towards the API, you can use this endpoint in here, in which, of course, you have to have specific headers for authentication and you have to have specific content, specific body, so that it will actually understand what you're trying to do, right? There are some security measures as well into that API request, but at the end of the day, it's an API request in which you send an image to be predicted, right? To be detected. Now, I'm not going to do that via endpoint just now. I'm going to do a quick test in here. And I have these pictures for testing in which I'm going to upload this other picture of Nutella toy, because I want to show you guys what the result usually is, right? So you can see that it kind of detected 2 Nutella toys in here, some of them with a specific probability, right? The reason why it does that is because if you guys remember our percentages, right? I have a 91% chance that it will probably be predicted correctly, or I will predict something in an image. Now that doesn't mean that I will have my model which will be spot on when it takes that. The more images you put in there, the more data you put, the more specific it will be. But in this case, although I have 2 products that have been detected, right? You can see that one of them is actually predicted with a 99.9% probability. And that's one of the indicators that probably you already know, right? You should take in consideration when you're analyzing the information that you're getting back from your models. Well, you probably will look for something that it's over 70% or 80% or 90%, because at some point, some things might be fuzzy. A picture like this, right, might generate you 2 responses on the same toy and the same product, most probably, right? Or it might be at a certain point that you have multiple products and you want to identify the one from the middle of the image. Different situations, right? But keep in mind that always your response will be like this. You will get in an API version, you will get a JSON, in which in that JSON it will specify the name of the tag that has been identified and a probability, right, in which the model basically says to you, I'm looking at this, I'm identifying this in this region, and I'm 99.9% sure that's a Mutella toy based on the training that I just had, right? So yeah, that's kind of how it looks like from that perspective. Let's also jump in a bit into this part right here. If you guys remember, we had this small application, and this is where the dev part starts, I guess. I won't bore you too much with code. But yeah, it's kind of a very simple application, as I said, right? You can see that I have some headers in here, which are literally the headers that you see in the application as well, right? Find out if an item is available, basically this row right here. And then I have, of course, a part of my application which is letting me upload a file, an image. Then, based on that image, I'm actually doing a JavaScript in which I'm doing some processing of that image. Now, that processing is using a task that I have in here in home controller, right? This, where is it? Sorry, this save file task that I have in here. And in this save file task, you'll probably see that the API request that I was bugging you guys about earlier, right? You'll see that I'm adding the prediction key, right? Don't do this. This is unsafe, of course, but as I said, I'm a noob when it comes to developing. I'm pretty sure from a security perspective, you guys will be way more attentive than me. I'm pointing towards the URI as well, right? So this URI that you see in here, this West Europe API cognitive.microsoft.com, it's basically, sorry for that, here it is. It's basically that endpoint that we were talking about in here. So if I go to predictions, and I want to show you guys the endpoints, let me delete this. Right, it has the same structure as well, right? And you can see that I'm building here an API request as I'm being instructed into this small, let's say, disclaimer right here, right? I'm adding my content, right? The file object and the file name, right? Then I'm setting up the content type, and then I'm waiting for a response, which will be of course, the response of the API request. Now, the response of the API request, then I'm literally gonna parse it into a JToken, and then I'm gonna look for that prediction score. If you guys remember that percentage that we were talking about, this is the prediction score, right? In which I'm looking for a prediction score which is over 90%, right? If it's over 90% in my specific case in this demo, right, then I want to return that prediction from the model. If it's under 90%, I'm just gonna say, yeah, I don't know if I have that product on stock, so try again with another picture, or I don't know, I just don't have it, and that's it, right? So that's kind of how it looks like, right? I also have, of course, some fail-safe in case this goes wrong. I have some other error messages in here and so on and so forth. But this function is executed right here. Sorry for that, a bit further up, right? In which if it's a success, then yeah, I will alert my application that I found the item with that data, and it will be redirected towards the product page. If that doesn't happen, then the item, it's not available. I'm just showing an error message right in that point, in which I'm saying, oh well, I don't really find it. Now, in terms of mapping, right, and because I do that redirect as well, you've probably seen it, but yeah, this is kind of simple, I guess. If the product will be a Nutella toy or that Knusper snack product, I'm literally just pointing to this website right here, petsypedia.com, in which literally this e-commerce website is selling these kind of products. What I'm showing you here are real products. I'm not joking. This is actually a real website which sells e-commerce things for pets in Romania, right? Now, that's how it kind of looks like. Let's do a quick demo again to show different use cases, I guess. Right, I'm gonna use a different picture for testing. Let's use one that shows me that balm, right? If I'm searching for a product, it's gonna find me the balm, it's gonna redirect me, right? Takes a while, but here it is. Doesn't have the product anymore, so sorry for that. I didn't do that research anymore. Probably that product is not available anymore on the website. Let's do vol split then. Let's see if this fuzzy picture gets recognized. It does. And here it is, right? So different cases. Let's do also one which is not containing a product. Let's see how that goes, right? So I have here a picture which I took in my hotel, I guess a while ago, which has, I don't know, some food, sort of. Let's try to search for this. Probably won't find anything. There it is. It's not available. Just try again, right? If I do a wall, a simple empty wall, probably it will be the same thing, right? So a very simple example of OpenAI, right? Of AI services, sorry, that can be used and can be implemented in your application. Now I'm showing you all of these things because when it comes to, use cases in e-commerce, that's just one of them, right? You're probably wondering, okay, how that visual search capability makes a difference from a product perspective. Well, for some companies, for some businesses, it does. I've seen companies which were specifically looking for these kind of implementations because they had users that were complaining that the search bar wasn't doing its job. Or you might have users, I've been one of them as well, in which I'm seeing a product in the country, I just take a picture of it, and then when I want to search it in my own country, I just want to input that picture, see if that website actually has it, and that's it, right? Some other things when it comes to use cases in e-commerce and in retail, because I was mentioning to you guys, those are building blocks, right? This is just one of the scenarios that you can do with AI when it comes to Azure components, right? But keep in mind that you can do all sorts of things. All of these things that you see on the screen right now, these are real life scenarios that I've seen implemented in customers that I work with, or they had the intention to implement at a certain point. Price tag detection, right? For example, if you're in a retail shop, in a retail store at some point, and you want to make sure that a price tag actually exists on your products, or of course if you want to scan certain things and you don't want to do the infrared solution in which it uses the code bar, right? You can actually use it for that as well, right? Automated checkout and payment as well. I know you guys here in Vilnius, I've seen it with my own eyes. You have those automated stores in which you just go in front of the cashier and basically everything is scanned and just tells you you have 25 euros to pay and so on and so forth. You can do the same thing with AI as well, right? Instead of the infrared solution, you can put all of your products probably, in a specific area. Then some camera can actually take a picture or a couple of pictures live, and it can basically tell you, I've identified this, this is how much you have to pay, right? That has been implemented as well. You can also do inventory management. I've seen a lot of things, and this is actually a pretty common thing in e-commerce and in retail, actually, in which if you want to find out how many products you have on a shelf of a specific, a specific product, you can literally take a bunch of pictures, and then artificial intelligence for you will say, okay, you have 44 products based on this shelf that you can put it in inventory. Certain things that you can do, right? As I said, there's no limit in here, and probably you've heard this from every person that has ever talked about artificial intelligence in here. It's all about having a building block, right? It's up to you as a business, it's up to you as a customer, as a user of these components to figure out how you want to place them and how you want to use them. So that's about it. We still have 10 minutes, I think. Do we have questions? Here, sorry. Okay, great. What is a good number of images for each tag to avoid overfitting in the model? Well, it depends. Out of my experience, probably, somewhere in between 30 and 50, I would say. if you want to do this specific thing that I'm doing right here, right? Because yeah, at a certain point, just imagine this. Imagine you have a product, right? There is a finite, a limited number of, I don't know, angles, or a limited number of, I don't know, situations in which you can picture that, and you can take a picture of that product, right? You can have fuzzy pictures, you can have pictures from a specific angle, or whatever, from top, from bottom, you name it. But at some point, they're kind of being redundant, right? You'll probably just repeat the same scenarios. Out of my experience, probably 30, 50, something like that, right? But I've seen really good working models with just 20 pictures. It really depends. It's a trial and error, I'm going to be honest with you, right? That's how models work. Just try it out, train it, see the results of that model. If the numbers, those percentages that you've probably seen, right, in terms of prediction and so on and so forth, are agreeable to you, then that's kind of it. Second one, what augmentation techniques are you constantly using while working with image recognition? Well, this kind of depends, right? It's up to you to use your own technologies in here in terms of techniques. I'm not using any of it at the moment, so what you saw here, it's literally brute, nothing at all, right? But if you want to use augmentation techniques to do image recognition for that, yeah, I guess you can use it as well. It doesn't really matter. So you can go from that spectrum, you can go from not using anything to using all kinds of techniques. Doesn't really, I mean, of course, it makes a difference, don't get me wrong. What I'm trying to say is that you don't necessarily have to use them to actually do what I've been showing in here. What minimum percentage of prediction accuracy is used for a production environment? Well, I guess it depends on your customers, right? I'm joking here, but yeah, I would recommend, if it were after me, at least 70%. And I'm telling you this because you've probably seen in my app in here that I had a 90% limit, right? Well, I'm doing that because it's a very simple scenario, right? I had 4 products in which my pictures were kind of up close and clear, and that was it. I've seen cases, and I'll give you an industry case at some point, right, in which there was a manufacturing company in which they wanted at some point into their production line to differentiate the things that they were manufacturing, building, whatever, right? So they had a bunch of parts, mechanical parts that were building for cars, and at some point they want to identify if one of those mechanical parts was intrusive in the line of the production that was in there, right? Now, as you can imagine, the scenario that I'm trying to explain to you guys, even if you do pictures with high-end cameras, and even if you monitor all of those production lines very closely, the quality in there won't be great, right? So the lower the quality that you have on pictures, probably you can ease up a bit on the prediction percentage, right? On the prediction accuracy. I'm saying that because at a certain point, 70% might be enough, 65% might be enough, but it really depends on what you're monitoring, what you're analyzing from an image perspective. If you have things that are really specific with just one product and they're close up like I had, go up with the percentage. If the pictures become more and more, let's say, complicated, in which you have multiple things inside there and you have multiple things that can be detected, probably you can go a bit lower, but not too lower, because otherwise you might have false positives as well. Which LLM model is it using? So those models that you see in there, those are black boxes from Microsoft. You don't really have details about the LLM models. I mean, you can probably, of course, read a bit on the Microsoft documentation for it, but these are ready-to-use models that Microsoft puts at your disposal. They're a bit customizable, as you've probably seen it, right? Because I can put my own pictures and so on and so forth, but what's inside, what technology is inside there, how the model is constructed and so on and so forth, yeah, Microsoft doesn't really give you those details. However, don't get me wrong, it's not like you're being stranded to not use your own models. If you want to build your own models in Microsoft, in Azure, you have Azure Machine Learning and other components that you can build your own models yourself. These are ready to use models because Microsoft, and whatever, I'm talking here about Microsoft, but again, it can be Amazon, it can be Google, it can be any cloud scaler, doesn't really matter. These are kind of offering customers, right, ready-to-use components for people which are not that well-versed from an AI perspective, so that they can implement in their solutions. This is just a visual one, but imagine If you want to, I know, extract data from images, a lot of companies nowadays, banks or I know insurance companies and so on and so forth, do a lot of document processing in which they extract data from passports or from I know identity cards or you name it, right? So you don't really know what's behind it. You just know that you want to use it, right? At some point, what happens in the back end, I know it's something that some of you geeks right here and me also don't want to admit, but yeah, it's a black box model. It's in there. Microsoft gives you very limited information about. Image recognition has implicit text recognition to use it for proposing similar products. Yes, you have text recognition as well. When it comes to text recognition, depends where you're going with this. If you're talking about text recognition in terms of I want to identify if it's handwriting or yeah, computer-based writing, so to speak, that's simple. You have that model as well. It was one of those actual models. Do you remember when we went to Azure and I showed you guys all of those different components that you can build in Azure? Well, some of them are specific for specific things, right? You have one which is called text analytics at some point, in which you can input a text into that model and you can get all sorts of stuff. You can get the sentiment of that text. You can know if it's positive or negative, right? If you can analyze if you have at some point, I know, what are the main subjects that are being talked about into that text and so on and so forth. So there are different things that you can do, of course, with AI, this included. That's it. That's all of it. Okay, then I'm right on time, I guess. Thank you for that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. And if you have any questions, just hit me up on LinkedIn, I guess. I will be more than happy to respond to your questions if there are any. If you want to talk about artificial intelligence, I will put my knowledge at your disposal if I can answer to your questions, of course. So thank you again for joining and enjoy.